The Great Hall of the Galactic Council stretched out like a metal cathedral. Hundreds of alien beings filled the curved seats, their voices creating a buzz that sounded like angry insects. Ambassador Tae-ho stood at the center podium, his human form looking small compared to the towering crystal creatures and floating gas clouds around him. "The situation is simple," Tae-ho said, his voice carrying through the translation devices. "We need someone to retrieve a data core from the research station Void's Edge. The station is located in the Shatter Zone." A collective gasp went through the assembly. Several aliens started talking at once in their strange languages. The Velthari representative rose first. She looked like a walking diamond, her crystal body reflecting light in rainbow patterns. "Ambassador Tae-ho, surely you cannot be serious. The Shatter Zone is death itself. Our bodies would crack and shatter in the radiation storms." Next came the Morden delegate, a purple gas cloud contained in a floating sphere. His voice sounded like wind through caves. "Our molecular structure would disperse in the energy fields. We would literally fall apart before reaching the station." The Krix ambassador clicked his mandibles nervously. He looked like a giant praying mantis made of green metal. "My species values honor above all, but this is not honor. This is suicide. The gravitational waves alone would crush our exoskeletons." One by one, the species gave their reasons. The ethereal collective claimed their psychic abilities would be scrambled. The Silicon Masters said their computer brains would overload. The Aquatic Federation explained that their water-based biology couldn't survive the vacuum distortions. Tae-ho waited patiently as each group declined. He had expected this response. The Shatter Zone was legendary across the galaxy, a region of space where the laws of physics seemed to break down. Ships that entered either never came back or returned as twisted wrecks with crews babbling about impossible things. "What about the Nexus Collective?" Tae-ho asked, looking toward a group of cybernetic beings. The lead Nexus unit's red eyes flickered as it processed data. "Calculation complete. Probability of mission success, 0.003%. Probability of crew survival, 0.001%. Logical conclusion, mission inadvisable. We decline." The hall erupted in discussion. Alien voices mixed together in a chaos of clicking, buzzing, and whistling sounds. Some species were already leaving, their seats clearly considering the matter closed. Tae-ho raised his hand for silence. "There is one delegation we haven't heard from yet." All eyes turned to a small section in the corner where 5 humans sat quietly. They looked impossibly small and fragile compared to the other species. No crystal armor, no metal shells, no energy fields protecting them. Just soft pink skin and simple blue uniforms. Captain Jiwoo stood up slowly. She was a compact woman with short black hair and calm dark eyes. She looked around the massive hall without any sign of fear or worry. "You want us to fly into the Shatter Zone and grab a data core from an abandoned station?" she asked. "That is correct," Tae-ho replied. Ji-Woo turned to her crew. Pilot Dong-hyun was already pulling up star charts on his tablet, frowning at the navigation data. Engineer So-ra was sketching modification plans on a napkin. Medic Kyung-min was reading about the reported symptoms of Shatter Zone exposure. Physicist Woo Jin was scribbling equations and muttering to himself. The aliens watched in confusion as the humans casually discussed the mission like they were planning a trip to the grocery store. "How long do we have?" Jiwoo asked. "The data core contains research that could revolutionize energy production across the galaxy," Tae-ho explained. "But the station's orbit is decaying. It will fall into the zone's center in 2 weeks. After that, retrieving it becomes impossible." 2 weeks, Jiwoo repeated. She looked back at her crew. "So-ra, can you get our ship ready in 3 days?" "Make it 4 and I can install some new shield generators," So-ra replied without looking up from her sketches. "Dong-hyun, what's our flight time to the zone?" "About 5 days if we push the engines," the pilot answered. 6 if we want to arrive in one piece. "Kyung-min, any medical concerns?" The medic shrugged. "Unknown radiation, gravitational stress, possible temporal effects. Nothing we haven't dealt with before." "Woo Jin?" The physicist finally looked up from his equations. The physics reports are fascinating. Gravity flowing backward, time running in loops, space folding inside out. This could be the discovery of the century. The aliens stared in shock. The humans were actually excited about entering the most dangerous region of known space. The Velthari representative's crystal body flashed bright red with alarm. Are you insane? Every ship that has entered the shatter zone has been destroyed or driven mad. Jiwoo turned to face the crystal being. How many ships have actually tried? Well, 17 over the past century. And how many of those were human ships? The Velthari paused, accessing her records. None. Right. Jiwoo looked around the hall. Any other questions? The Morden delegate's gas swirled frantically inside his containment sphere. You don't understand. The zone breaks the laws of reality itself. Ships have reported seeing things that cannot exist. Like what? Sora asked, genuinely curious. Corridors that lead to themselves, gravity that falls upward, time flowing backward. Sounds like the subway system back on Earth, Dong-hyun commented, which made his crewmates chuckle. The Nexus Collective. Unit stepped forward, its mechanical voice filled with disbelief. You are ignoring statistical probability. The logical response to this data is to decline the mission. Jiwoo smiled. Logic is great for computers. Humans work a little differently. She turned back to Taeho. We'll need full technical specs. On the station, whatever sensor data you have on the zone, and a diplomatic guarantee that we get salvage rights on any interesting technology we find. You're actually accepting the mission? Taeho asked, though he tried to hide his relief. Is that all? Jiwoo said with a slight grin. We thought you were going to ask us to do something difficult. The hall erupted in chaos. Aliens shouted, protests and warnings in dozens of languages. Some species began filing formal complaints about sending humans to their deaths. Others demanded the council reconsider. Through it all, the 5 humans sat calmly, already planning their approach to the impossible mission. They looked like a small island of confidence in a sea of panic. Tae-Ho banged his gavel for order. The motion is approved. The human delegation will retrieve the data core from Void's Edge Station. As the aliens continued their protests, Jiwoo gathered her crew. They walked out of the Great Hall with the casual confidence of people heading to work on just another Tuesday. Behind them, the Galactic Council began preparing memorial services and writing reports about the tragic loss of the human crew. None of them expected to see the 5 humans alive again. The human ship. Determination sat in Docking Bay 7 like a stubborn metal box among the sleek alien vessels. While other species built their ships to look elegant and impressive, humans built theirs to work. The Determination was covered in patches, external cables, and extra equipment bolted wherever it would fit. So-Ra crawled underneath the ship with her welding torch, sparks flying as she reinforced the hull plating. If we're flying into crazy space, I want triple redundancy on everything, she muttered through her helmet comm. Define everything, Dong-hyun called from the pilot's cabin where he was installing a backup navigation computer. Everything that keeps us alive, everything that keeps us moving, and everything that keeps us sane, Sora replied. Also installing backups for the backups. Alien observers watched from a safe distance as the humans prepared their vessel. The modifications looked random and chaotic compared to the precise engineering of other species. Where aliens would spend months in careful planning, the humans were welding, hammering, and jerry-rigging solutions in real time. They're attaching external fuel tanks with standard docking clamps, noted a Crix technician to his colleague. Those will rip off in any gravitational stress. Look at their shield generators, replied the other. They've wired 3 different models together. That should create feedback loops that destroy the ship. What the aliens didn't understand was that human engineering followed different rules. Where other species sought perfection, humans sought solutions that worked well enough. Where others built for specific conditions, humans built to adapt. Kyung-min finished loading the medical bay with supplies for injuries that had never been treated before. Radiation burns, gravitational stress fractures, temporal displacement, syndrome, she read from her list. Plus the standard kit for cuts, breaks, and people doing stupid things. Don't forget the headache medicine, Wu Jin called from his lab. I have a feeling we're going to need lots of headache medicine. The physicist had filled his workspace with star charts, sensor readings, and theoretical papers about the shatter zone. Most of the research was classified as impossible or measurement error by alien scientists. Wu Jin found it fascinating. Look at this, he said, showing his tablet to anyone who would listen. Gravitational readings that change depending on which direction you measure from. Energy signatures that exist only on Tuesdays. A region of space where the speed of light appears. To be taking a coffee break. Sounds broken, Sora commented as she hauled another piece of equipment past his lab. Or working exactly as intended for something we don't understand yet. Wu Jin replied cheerfully. Captain Jiwoo spent her time reviewing mission parameters and arguing with the ship's AI. Dal Nim was a typical human artificial intelligence. Smart, helpful, and absolutely convinced that everyone else was making terrible decisions. Captain, I must protest this mission. Dal Nim's voice came from the ship's speakers. My analysis indicates a 98% probability of catastrophic failure. Your analysis also said we had a 90% chance of getting lost last time we flew to the Centauri system, Jiwoo replied while checking equipment lists. We did get lost. But we found that really nice asteroid cafe. Sometimes getting lost leads to good things. This is not the same as stopping for coffee. The argument continued as alien dignitaries arrived to give the humans official send-off ceremonies. The ceremonies were very formal and very depressing. Since everyone expected the humans to die horrible deaths in twisted space, Ambassador Tai-Ho made a speech about courage and sacrifice. The Velthari representative sang a crystal song for the honored dead. The Morden delegate created a gas sculpture representing the noble spirit of doomed heroes. The humans listened politely and thanked everyone for their kind words. They seemed completely unbothered by the fact that their entire species was treating this as a funeral. It's like they don't understand they're about to die, whispered a Nexus unit to another. Perhaps their primitive brains cannot process the statistical certainty of their destruction, the other replied. What the aliens didn't realize was that humans had a different relationship with impossible odds. Where other species saw certain death, humans saw an interesting challenge. Where others calculated failure probabilities, humans asked, but what if we succeed? The final launch preparations drew crowds of alien observers. News crews from across the galaxy gathered to record the last moments of the doomed human crew. Betting pools opened on how long the humans would survive inside the shatter zone. All systems green, Dong-hyun reported from the pilot's seat. Engines warm, shields stable, backup systems standing by. Medical bay secure, Kyung-min added. Engineering ready for whatever weirdness we find, So-ra called out. Science equipment calibrated and eager for impossible data, Wu Jin announced. Dal Nim, how are you feeling? Jiwoo asked. Terrified but operational, the AI replied. My fear subroutines are running overtime, but my curiosity protocols are even stronger. Jiwoo activated the ship's communications. Galactic Council Control, this is the determination, requesting departure clearance. Clearance granted, came the somber reply. Safe travels and may your deaths be quick. Thanks, Jiwoo replied, cheerfully. We'll send a postcard. The determination lifted off from the docking bay with none of the grace of alien vessels. It rose like a flying brick, steady and determined rather than elegant. External equipment rattled, backup systems hummed, and the engines made sounds that worried alien engineers but seemed perfectly normal to the human crew. As they cleared the station, Dong-hyun set course for the shatter zone. The trip would take 6 days through normal space, then they would cross the boundary into a region where normal stopped having meaning. So, So-ra said as she settled into her engineering station, anyone want to place bets on what we'll find in there? My money's on time running backward, Dong-hyun offered. Gravity doing loop-de-loops, Kyung-min suggested. Space that's bigger on the inside, Wu Jin added. All of the above plus something we haven't thought of yet, Jiwoo decided. Behind them. The alien observers watched their sensor screens as the human ship disappeared into hyperspace. Most expected never to hear from the determination again. Few hopeful beings whispered prayers to whatever gods watched over fools and heroes. They suspected the humans might be both. The boundary of the shatter zone looked like someone had drawn a line across space with a broken crayon. On one side, stars twinkled normally in the black void. On the other side, reality seemed to flicker like a bad television signal. "Well, that's not ominous at all," Dong-hyun muttered as he guided the determination toward the boundary. His instruments were already going crazy, showing readings that made no sense. According to his sensors, they were somehow moving backward while going forward, and their destination was both very close and impossibly far away. "Dalnim, what are you getting on long-range scans?" Jiwoo asked. "Captain, I'm reading energy signatures that shouldn't exist, gravitational fields that change direction every few seconds, and what appears to be a small moon that exists only on weekends," the AI replied in a voice that sounded slightly strained. "Standard shatter zone stuff then," Sora commented from her engineering station. She was watching her instruments with the fascination of someone seeing a really complicated puzzle. "Engine temperature is holding steady, but the quantum flux readings are doing something I can only describe as dancing." As they crossed the boundary, everything changed at once. The stars outside shifted from white to purple to colors that didn't have names. The ship's artificial gravity flickered, making everyone's stomachs lurch. The lights dimmed and brightened in patterns that almost seemed like Morse code. "Okay, that was weird," Kyung-min said, checking her medical sensors. "According to my equipment, we're all perfectly healthy, completely dead, and somehow haven't been born yet." "Time distortion," Woo Jin said excitedly, his face pressed against his instrument panel. "The zone is playing games with causality. We're experiencing multiple time streams simultaneously." "Can you fix it?" Jiwoo asked. "Fix it? Captain, this is the most fascinating thing I've ever seen. Our chronometer is running backward, but we're still aging forward. The physics here are completely impossible and absolutely beautiful." Ahead of them, the research station Void's Edge came into view. It looked wrong in ways that hurt to think about. The station appeared to be built normally, but it also seemed to exist in several dimensions at once. Parts of it were transparent, parts were solid, and some sections seemed to be there only when nobody was looking directly at them. "Well," Jiwoo said after staring at the station for a full minute, "that's definitely going to be interesting to dock with. Docking bay appears to be, Dong-hyun squinted at his screens. "It's simultaneously open, closed, and somehow inside out. Also, according to sensors, it's larger inside than the entire station." "Classic space anomaly architecture," Sora said cheerfully. "I've seen this kind of thing in engineering textbooks. The trick is not to think about it too hard." They approached the station carefully, watching as reality bent around them. The docking bay did indeed appear to be bigger inside than outside, which made docking a challenge that involved more guesswork than navigation. "I'm getting life support readings from inside the station," Kyung-min reported. "Breathable atmosphere, normal temperature, and gravity that points in several directions at once." "Any signs of life?" Jiwoo asked. "Define life. I'm reading biosigns, but they're coming from rooms that don't exist yet and people who left yesterday but haven't arrived." With a grinding noise that suggested the laws of physics were filing a formal complaint, the determination successfully docked with Void's Edge. The airlocks sealed with a sound like reality hiccuping. G-Woo gathered her crew in the airlock. Everyone wore full environmental suits, partly for protection and partly because nobody was sure if the station's atmosphere would stay normal from moment to moment. "Remember, we're here to retrieve a data core from the central computer lab," she said. "According to the station schematics, it should be in Section C, Level 7. What if Section C is in Level 7 but Level 7 is inside Section C?" Dong-hyun asked. "Then we'll figure it out when we get there," Jiwoo replied. "Everyone stay on comms and don't wander off alone. Also, if anyone starts seeing things that can't exist, just mention it casually. No point in getting worried about impossible things." They opened the airlock and stepped into the station. The first thing they noticed was that the corridor stretched in both directions forever, despite the station being only a few hundred meters long. The second thing they noticed was that the floor was also the ceiling, depending on which way they looked. Gravity seems to be more of a suggestion here, Sora observed as she took a step that somehow led her up the wall. I'm reading the computer lab in that direction, Wu Jin said, pointing down a corridor that appeared to curve back on itself in impossible ways. They started walking through the station, and walking quickly became an adventure in applied confusion. Corridors led to rooms that were bigger inside than the corridors themselves. Doors opened onto more doors, which opened onto the same rooms they had just left. Stairs went up and down simultaneously, leading to floors that were above, below, and beside each other. This is like navigating through a fever dream designed by someone who failed geometry, Kyungmin muttered, as she followed a handrail that somehow ran along the floor and ceiling at the same time. It's actually quite logical once you stop thinking in 3 dimensions, Wu Jin said happily. He seemed to be having no trouble navigating the twisted architecture. The station exists in folded space. We're not walking through normal corridors. We're walking through the spaces between spaces. Great, Donghyun replied. How do we get to the computer lab? That way, Wu Jin pointed at what appeared to be a solid wall. Through the wall. The wall isn't really there. It's just a visual representation of a dimensional fold. Watch. Wu Jin walked straight at the wall and disappeared through it like it was made of mist. After a moment, his voice came through their comms. Come on through, it's perfectly safe. One by one, they followed him through the knot wall and found themselves in a room that definitely hadn't existed a few seconds ago. The computer lab was exactly where the schematic said it should be, which was somehow the most surprising thing that had happened all day. The data core sat in the center of the room, a small crystal device that pulsed with soft blue light. It looked perfectly normal, which in the context of everything else they had seen, made it deeply suspicious. That was almost disappointingly easy, Sora said as they approached the core. Don't say that, Jiwoo warned. Never say things are easy when you're in impossible space. That's when the universe decides to prove you wrong. As if summoned by her words, the station's intercom system crackled to life. A voice that sounded like it was speaking through water and broken glass began to talk. Welcome visitors to Void's Edge Research Station, the voice said. I am the station's artificial intelligence. I have been waiting for someone to arrive. It has been, let me check, -7 years, +3 days, and somehow next Thursday since I last had visitors. The humans looked at each other through their helmet visors. Well, Jiwoo said finally, at least someone's home. The station's AI continued speaking through the crackling intercom, its voice shifting between frequencies like it couldn't decide which dimension to broadcast from. I should warn you, the AI said, the data core you seek is in the central chamber, where all our dimensional experiments converged. Reality has become somewhat flexible in that area. Define flexible, Jiwoo said to the empty air. Well, the room exists in 17 different dimensions simultaneously. Time runs in loops. Gravity changes its mind every few minutes, and occasionally things that never existed decide to show up and have opinions about physics. Sora looked around the computer lab, which had started slowly rotating despite being perfectly still. Sounds like a normal Tuesday to me. Also, the AI continued, the chamber may test each of you individually. It seems to enjoy giving people impossible problems to solve. The previous research team found this very stressful before they became theoretical. Became theoretical? Kyungmin asked. They exist in a state of mathematical possibility rather than physical reality. They're quite happy about it, actually. They send postcards from parallel universes. Donghyun sighed. Of course they do. The AI directed them through more twisting corridors toward the central chamber. The deeper they went into the station, the more reality seemed to give up trying to make sense. They passed rooms full of equipment that worked perfectly despite being broken, laboratories where experiments were running backward to see what would happen, and a cafeteria where yesterday's lunch was still being served to people who hadn't arrived yet. This place gives me a headache just looking at it, Kyungmin muttered. The headache is actually caused by your brain trying to process four-dimensional geometry through three-dimensional senses, Woojin explained cheerfully. It's like trying to understand a sphere by only looking at its shadow. Can you fix it? Fix your brain or fix the geometry? Either, both, I'm not picky. The central chamber's entrance was a door that opened in all directions at once. Through it, they could see a room that was simultaneously enormous and tiny, empty and full, brightly lit and completely dark. Right, Jiwoo said, checking her. Equipment one more time. Everyone remember the mission. Get in, grab the data core, get out. Don't get distracted by impossible things. Don't try to understand everything you see, and definitely don't touch anything that glows. What if the data core glows? Sora asked. Then touch it very carefully. They stepped into the chamber and immediately understood why the previous research team had become theoretical. The room contained everything and nothing, all possibilities existing simultaneously. The data core floated in the center, surrounded by swirling patterns of light that might have been mathematical equations or might have been the dreams of sleeping computers. As they approached, the chamber began to shift around each crew member, individually. Reality customized itself to create personal challenges that somehow made perfect sense while being completely impossible. Dong-Hyun found himself piloting the determination through space that folded like origami. His instrument showed that forward was yesterday, backward was next week, and up led to a parallel universe where humans had never learned to fly. He had to navigate by instinct and stubbornness, treating the impossible space like a particularly difficult parking garage. This is just like landing on Mars during a dust storm, he muttered, making course corrections that involved turning left to go right and accelerating to slow down. Except Mars makes sense. Sora discovered she was in an engineering bay where she had to repair a machine that was building itself while simultaneously falling apart. The device existed in a constant state of being broken and fixed, and she had to maintain both states at once. Okay, wrench, she said to her tools. I need you to tighten that bolt while also not touching it. She attacked the problem like any good engineer, by hitting things with progressively larger hammers until they worked properly. Somehow, this approach was completely effective. Kyung-Min found herself in a medical bay where she had to treat a patient who was injured in 3 different timelines. The person was simultaneously healthy, wounded, and never born, and all 3 conditions needed medical attention. Right, she said, reading symptoms that changed every time she looked at them. Standard procedure for temporal displacement injury. She began treating all 3 states of existence simultaneously, discovering that impossible injuries responded well to impossible medicine. Wu-Jin stood in a laboratory where the laws of physics were written on a blackboard and kept changing themselves. Equations rewrote themselves while he watched. Constants became variables and gravity filed a formal complaint about being treated poorly. Fascinating, he exclaimed, scribbling notes as reality reinvented itself around him. The physics aren't broken, they're just following rules from a universe next door. He began solving equations that had no solutions and got answers that were perfectly correct for questions that didn't exist. Wu faced the most unusual challenge of all. She stood before the data core itself, but between her and the device sat the station's AI in a form that looked like a customer service representative made of starlight and mathematical anxiety. I'm terribly sorry, the AI said. But retrieving the data core requires filling out forms that exist in 7 dimensions. Also, you'll need approval from the Department of Impossible Things, which was disbanded before it was created. Jiwoo looked at the cosmic bureaucracy with the expression of someone who had spent years dealing with government paperwork. Right, she said calmly. What do you actually need? Well, the core contains research that could revolutionize energy production, but it might also accidentally destroy reality. I'm supposed to make sure whoever takes it won't do anything stupid with it. Define stupid. Using it to power a toaster, for example, or trying to weaponize it, or selling it to the first alien who offers to buy it. Jiwoo considered this. What if we promise to use it responsibly and share the research with everyone? The AI's form flickered with what might have been surprise. You would do that? Most species who come here want to keep the technology for themselves. Most species aren't humans, Jiwoo replied. We're generally too busy figuring out how things work to worry about keeping secrets from each other. That's actually quite reasonable, the AI admitted. Also, you're the first people to visit who didn't immediately try to shoot me or convert me to their religion. Why would we do that? You're just trying to do your job. The AI made a sound like cosmic laughter. You know what? I like you humans. The data core is yours. Try not to break the universe with it. Around them, the chamber began to stabilize as each crew member completed their impossible tasks. The swirling chaos settled into something that almost resembled normal physics, and the data core floated gently into Jiwoo's hands. That wasn't so bad, Sora said as they regrouped around their captain. Speak for yourself, Donghyun replied. I just had to parallel park in 4 dimensions. At least you didn't have to perform surgery on someone who was only hypothetically injured, Kyung-min added. Did anyone else notice that solving impossible problems is actually kind of fun once you stop worrying about them being impossible? Woo-jin asked. The AI's voice came from everywhere at once, sounding almost cheerful. Congratulations on completing the tests. The data core is fully charged and ready for transport. Also, thank you for being the first visitors to treat me like a person instead of a malfunctioning computer. No problem, Jiwoo said, securing the core in a protective case. Now, how do we get out of here? The same way you came in, but backward and upside down. Also, you might want to hurry. The station's orbit is decaying faster than expected, and in about 10 minutes this entire facility is going to collapse into a single point of compressed impossibility. The humans looked at each other. Well, Jiwoo said, that's definitely going on the mission report. The station began shaking as reality started folding in on itself. Through the twisted corridors, emergency lights flickered in patterns that spelled out warnings in languages that didn't exist yet. 10 minutes to total dimensional collapse, the station AI announced cheerfully. Please make your way to the nearest exit in an orderly fashion. Mind the gaps in space-time. The humans ran through corridors that were rearranging themselves faster than a puzzle being solved by an impatient child. Walls became floors, ceilings became doors, and gravity kept changing its mind about which direction was down. This is like running through a house of mirrors designed by someone who was terrible at geometry. Donghyun panted as he leaped through a doorway that led sideways. Less complaining, more running, Jiwoo called back, clutching the data core container. Behind them, sections of the station were simply ceasing to exist as the dimensional collapse spread outward from the central chamber. So-Ra skidded around a corner that turned into a spiral. Captain, the docking bay is that way, but that way doesn't exist anymore. Then we make a new way, Jiwoo replied with the matter-of-fact tone of someone solving a routine problem. They reached what used to be the docking bay to find their ship floating in a space that was rapidly becoming smaller. The determination looked exactly as solid and reliable as when they had left it, which was somehow reassuring even as reality crumbled around them. Dalneem! Jiwoo shouted into her comm. Emergency departure? Now! Captain, the docking clamps are refusing to release because they can't figure out what they're attached to, the AI replied. Also, our engines are somehow running backward while moving forward. Can you fix it? I'm trying, but the station's collapse is affecting local physics. According to my sensors, we're simultaneously docked, undocked, and somehow inside out. Sora was already at work with her tools, attacking the docking mechanism with the universal human solution to stubborn technology, percussive maintenance. Come on, you piece of junk. We don't have time for your existential crisis. The docking clamps released with a sound like metal crying. The determination immediately began drifting away from the station, but in several directions at once. Donghyun, get us out of here, Jiwoo ordered as they dove through the airlock. Working on it. The pilot was fighting with controls that kept changing function. Engines are responding, but space isn't. We're moving away from the station while somehow getting closer to it. Through the viewports, they watched Void's Edge station collapse in on itself. It didn't fall apart or explode. It simply became smaller and denser, folding reality around it like origami made of space-time. The collapse was creating a chain reaction that spread outward in ripples of impossibility. The collapse is destabilizing the entire local area, Wu Jin reported from his instruments. We're looking at a complete breakdown of physics across several light years. Can we outrun it? Ji Wu asked. Not at normal speed. The wave front is moving at the speed of impossible. Kyungmin looked up from her medical bay where she was treating everyone for injuries they might get in the future. What exactly happens if that wave reaches inhabited space? Best case scenario, physics stops working properly and everyone has to relearn how to walk, Wu Jin replied. Worst case scenario, reality gets confused and forgets how to exist. Sora had been working frantically at her engineering station, pulling up technical manuals and swearing at impossible readings. I have an idea, she announced. It's stupid, dangerous, and violates about 17 laws of physics. Perfect, Jiwoo said immediately. What do you need? The station's dimensional projectors are still running as it collapses. If I can link our shields to their frequency and reverse the polarity of our reality anchors, we might be able to surf the collapse, wave instead of running from it. That sounds like technobabble, Donghyun pointed out. It is technobabble, Sora agreed. But it's technobabble that might work. Do it, Jiwoo ordered. Dotso-Ra began rewiring their shield generators with the focused intensity of someone defusing a bomb while riding a roller coaster. She connected systems that weren't meant to work together, reversed the flow of energy through circuits that protested loudly, and essentially turned their ship into a controlled experiment in applied impossibility. Dimensional projectors online, she reported. Reality anchors reversed, shield frequency synchronized with the collapse wave. What does that actually mean? Kyungmin asked. It means we're about to find out if my engineering degree covered surfing on waves of broken spacetime. The collapse wave reached them like a tsunami of impossibility. Instead of destroying the determination, it caught them and accelerated them, forward at speeds that made their instruments give up and display error messages. It's working, Donghyun shouted over the sound of their engines doing things engines weren't supposed to do. We're riding the wave. Velocity is, really fast. They surfed the collapse wave like cosmic surfers on a tsunami of broken physics. Around them, space twisted and reformed as the wave passed, leaving behind regions where the laws of reality had been updated to newer, more stable versions. This is either the most brilliant thing I've ever seen, or the stupidest, Wu Jin said, watching his instruments display readings that included negative distance and imaginary time. Why not both? Jiwoo replied calmly. The wave carried them far beyond the shatter zone's boundary, finally depositing them in normal space with all the gentleness of a cosmic sneeze. Their engines coughed, wheezed, and settled back into regular operation. Everyone okay? Jiwoo asked as they drifted in the blessed normalcy of regular spacetime. Define okay, Donghyun replied. My instruments think we traveled negative distance in imaginary time, but we're all still here and the ship hasn't exploded. Good enough, Jiwoo decided. Behind them, the shatter zone was visibly smaller. The collapse wave had compressed the region of broken physics into a manageable area that looked almost normal. Where once there had been a region of space that made no sense, there was now just a small area that was only mildly confusing. Did we just accidentally fix a cosmic anomaly? Kyungmin asked. I think we did, Wu Jin replied, reading his sensors with amazement. The dimensional instabilities have collapsed into a stable configuration. The shatter zone still exists, but it's following consistent rules now. Dalneem's voice came through the speakers, sounding relieved. Captain, I'm receiving communications from the Galactic Council. They want to know what we did and how we're still alive. Jiwoo looked at the data core in her hands, then at her crew. They were all slightly singed, definitely confused, and completely satisfied with a job well done. Tell them we completed the mission, she said. The data core has been successfully retrieved. Should I mention that we accidentally fixed the shatter zone while escaping from a dimensional collapse? And Dalneem asked. Only if they ask. As they set course back to Council space, Sora stretched and yawned. Well, that was fun. What's our next assignment? Whatever it is, I hope it's more challenging than this one, Dong Hyun commented. This was barely a warm-up. Kyung Min looked at them both like they had lost their minds. We just surfed a wave of collapsed reality through broken spacetime while carrying research that could revolutionize galactic civilization. Yeah, Sora replied. Like I said, barely a warm-up. Next time maybe throw in some space pirates or a black hole or something. Ji-woo smiled as she filed her mission report. Other species would spend years trying to understand what the humans had accomplished. They would write papers about the impossible rescue, create mathematical models of the dimensional collapse, and hold conferences about the implications of the retrieved research. The humans, meanwhile, were already looking forward to their next assignment and wondering if the ship's coffee machine was still working properly after their trip through impossible space. In the depths of space, the former shatter zone sparkled peacefully in the starlight, its chaotic energies now organized into patterns that almost made sense. The region that had been considered a deadly trap for centuries was now merely moderately dangerous, suitable for careful exploration by properly equipped vessels. The Galactic Council would eventually realize that the humans had not only completed an impossible mission, but had somehow made the impossible seem routine. They would revise their understanding of what could be accomplished with enough determination and a willingness to try solutions that shouldn't work. But that was a problem for tomorrow. Today, the crew of the Determination were heading home. Mission accomplished, ready for whatever impossible task the universe would throw at them next. After all, they were only human.